This is CBS.
Among the items to be covered on the news tonight is the fear of contracting AIDS that has prompted St. Paul paramedics to ask for more information about AIDS victims in the city.
At the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, workers have been warned about a possible health threat caused by a so-called spy dust.
The Minneapolis Water Department may reconsider its meter reading rules.
And Minnesota's lone entrant in the Little League Championship came up to bat today in Virginia.
We'll tell you how they fared in a moment on the 10 p.m. report.
You talked, and at W Light 103 FM, they listened. You said you enjoy a wide variety of music, including your favorite oldies. And 80% of you who listen to W Light said a lot of music is very important. Most of you who listen to KS 95 told us a lot of music is important to you, too. You don't have to say it twice. You want more music? Listen to W Light 103 FM. It's light rock and less talk.
Listen, Best Buy Company's uptown store at 1305 West Lake Street has been remodeled, so it's bigger and better than ever. And there's a giant grand reopening sale, so you can buy stereos, TVs, and appliances real cheap. Now, if uptown's too cool for you, don't worry. The prices are good at all 9 Best Buy Company stores. Look for our advertisements in your Wednesday and Sunday paper. Then shop the Best Buy Company's uptown grand reopening. Hey, don't settle for paying too much.
Families disagree about a lot of things.
But I want a dachshund. No way,
But there's one thing they agree on. Lee jeans from Target.
Yes, they are. No,
well, whatever we get, it's going to have to be a watchdog.
A watchdog? They bite.
Like men's and women's denims or cords, just $14.88. Or boys and girls' denims, just $12.99.
Mom!
All right, we are getting a cat.
Aww.
Lee jeans, no matter who wears the pants in the family.
Great, a watch cat.
Serving and informing the Twin Cities for 4 decades. This is WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And now, Dave Moore, Pat Miles, Mike Fairborn, and Mark Rosen bring you Channel 4's 10 p.m. report.
Good evening, everyone. The growing health threat presented by the disease AIDS is of growing concern to one particular group of health professionals. Debbie?
Dave, St. Paul paramedics are worried that providing emergency care to others could make them the victims of the disease. The paramedics say their job makes them vulnerable to infection, and so they want to minimize the risk with special precautions. And they want to know when the risk is present. Caroline Lowe reports.
Earlier this month, St. Paul paramedics rushed to a Midway home in response to a call about a woman having a baby. She was taken to the University of Minnesota Hospital. There, the staff shocked paramedics with the news that the woman and her family had AIDS.
That information turned out to be false. Although the patient lives with a man who has AIDS, the woman does not have the disease or the virus herself.
Despite the clarification, the case has increased concern among emergency crews about their chances of becoming infected with the AIDS virus, which spreads through exchanging body fluids.
There's always the possibility that someone's bleeding. There's always this possibility of someone getting saliva on you. And all of our people, you know, there's always a possibility of them having an open cut, an open wound, a needle stick.
Fire officials want the state health department to inform them of every AIDS case in St. Paul. That way they could know when to wear protective gear and respond appropriately in an emergency.
For a paramedic to have a line listing or have ready access to every confirmed AIDS patient in that vicinity or every potentially infectious individual in the community would just be impractical, and even more importantly, it would be illegal because of data practices and data privacy laws.
Beside the legal restrictions, health officials say they don't know the identity of the people most infectious, people who carry the AIDS virus but have no symptoms. And based on experiences in other U.S. cities, Mike Osterholm says the chances of a paramedic in St. Paul becoming infected are very low. Despite the evidence, Osterholm says that paramedics should take the same precautions in every emergency that they would when they know a patient has AIDS. But with more than 15,000 calls for help a year, fire officials say it would be impractical to gear up for AIDS every time a crew goes out.
While public policy may restrict the flow of information,
Tim Fuller says that private citizens can help paramedics in their efforts to avoid infection. For starters, he would like AIDS patients to give their names to the fire department so they can be entered in their 911 computer. That's currently the case of some other high-risk patients, including children at risk for SIDS. Despite their concern, Fuller is confident that all of the city's 92 paramedics will provide AIDS patients with the same kind of care they would give anyone else in an emergency. With photographer Art Roy, Caroline Lowe, WCCO Television News in St. Paul.
One symptom of the fear that the disease AIDS has generated is tonight's events at Stillwater State Prison. Tonight, a 10-day lockup at the facility came to an end. A lockup that was ordered after an inmate was diagnosed suffering from pre-AIDS symptoms. Prison officials say that the lockup was needed to educate prisoners and staff about AIDS. One prison guard was fired after he refused to search a prisoner for fear of contracting AIDS. Dave?
Possible health threat was revealed today at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, and it comes from a high-tech spying device, a chemical dust. The State Department charged that for years the Soviets have been placing the dust on doorknobs and around the embassy to track contacts involving U.S. diplomats. The dust appears invisible, but when treated with a special chemical, it will turn orange. And under ultraviolet light, it can be seen very clearly. The chemical compound is called NPPD. The U.S. experts say the chemical is believed to cause cancer and can cause, indeed, deformities in unborn children. But so far, there's been no evidence that anyone working at the U.S. Embassy has been harmed by this so-called spy dust. Still, U.S. officials say they have become alarmed when they realized that the Soviets had stepped up their use of the chemicals, and so the State Department issued a formal warning to all U.S. personnel. Debbie?
The head of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, Minnesota's Dave Durenberger, says that Soviet action cannot be condoned. He says the U.S. State Department has reacted too mildly, and on today's 5 p.m. report, he told us what action he'd take.
It's such an uncivilized act, an inhumane act, that the best way to make sure the Soviets don't repeat it for anybody around the world is to throw every one of their people out of the United States who is at least suspected of being a KGB agent. There are 150 of them in the United States right now.
Durenberger says it appears the Soviets have been using the chemical NPPD on U.S. officials since 1976.
The makers of the Dalcon Shield have filed for federal protection under Chapter 11 of the bankruptcy laws to fend off creditors in lawsuits. Officials of A.H. Robbins Company say the firm has paid out $380 million in claims to women who say they were injured by the Dalcon Shield, the intrauterine birth control device. Many of the women still suing A.H. Robbins are represented by Twin Cities attorneys. And today, they said it's too early to determine whether the bankruptcy proceeding would affect their lawsuits, just as it's still too early to determine whether Minneapolis or Bloomington will be the site of a brand new convention center, or even whether there will be a convention center. Today, one of the developers of the proposed Bloomington mega mall said he would leave Minnesota before he would leave the mall out of his plans. And at the state capitol, lawmakers seemed content to leave money out of the budget for any mall when they heard that both cities unveiled their aid requests. Pat Kessler wraps up the latest events.
And today will be to hear from...
Although today's hearing was the first time many lawmakers saw the hard numbers for Bloomington and Minneapolis, it was quickly clear neither project is going anywhere fast.
I don't think the Minneapolis proposal would pass this legislature on its own, nor would the Bloomington proposal on its own, unless there can be some middle ground found and some accommodation.
Rural lawmakers say they worry more about farms than conventions. The northern suburbs say they've been cut out of the stadium, the racetrack, and the convention center. And many lawmakers won't go for state aid even if the two cities can agree on something.
If there is some accommodation by both sides, I presume that they'll be milking the cow from both sides. And the poor taxpayers are really going to suffer.
The accommodations sought by lawmakers would give a convention center to Minneapolis while building a mega mall in Bloomington. But compromise is a word the mayors of both cities don't want to use. And the Canadian developers of the Bloomington Mall today made themselves very clear.
Is there no room for compromise with you?
Well, compromise is go build what you want, let me build what I want. I have nothing to do with them with compromise. I have given them all the compromises. I said, go do whatever you want. Just leave us alone.
In addition to the problem of votes here in the Senate Tax Committee, some are suggesting it may be unconstitutional to use public money for a private enterprise in Bloomington. To both issues, Bloomington officials say no money, no mall. Pat Kessler, WCCO Television News.
Another trainload of nuclear waste is on its way tonight from the Monticello nuclear power plant to a waste disposal site near Morris, Illinois. This is the 16th shipment of nuclear waste to leave the plant, and tonight on Nicollet Island, there were no protesters to greet this shipment. 4 owls came flying into the Twin Cities this evening, not by their own means, but by a jetliner. You see, the owls are not just ordinary owls, they are burrowing owls, an endangered species in Minnesota. The owls come to Minnesota from the Calgary Zoo in Alberta. They will be held at the Carpenter Nature Center for 2 weeks, and then they'll be released at the Blue Mound State Park. It is hoped that the owls will multiply. An owl's sex is hard to determine, but DNR officials think they have 3 females and a male.
A new Princess K rules the Milky Way tonight. 20-year-old Stephanie Dickey from Black Duck, Minnesota. Stephanie was crowned in ceremonies just about a half hour ago at the State Fairground. She attends the University of Minnesota at Crookston. Over the next year, Ms. Dickey will serve as the Goodwill Ambassador for the American Dairy Association of Minnesota, representing 24,000 Minnesota dairy farmers.
The controversy continues over whether Minneapolis meter readers are milking their customers out of money. We'll have that story when the 10 p.m. report continues.
Step into the world of tomorrow with Hitachi, an innovative world of electronics determined to take you beyond ordinary television, where exceptional picture quality is channeled into every set. Quality so reliable it's backed with a limited warranty unlike any other. That's quality. That's Hitachi.
The sight, the sound of quality, a leader, Hitachi.
You're out of your mind! You're a disgrace to umpires everywhere!
Long! So's your nose!
When you're feeling a little drier than usual, you need more than the usual ginger ale. Schweppes, with real Jamaican ginger, bursting with Schweppervescence.
This is a tennis ball. Ever seen one of these before?
Pretty cool, Mr. Moffat. A lesser man would have crumbled.
Schweppes, more than the usual ginger ale.
Waddle, waddle, wiggle, wobble, boing, boing, boing.
Don't worry, call the Car-X man.
When you need shock absorbers, come see us. We carry the ones you need. Install them while you wait and guarantee them for as long as you own your car. The same is true for McPherson struts. Hey, Jimmy, show them one of our struts.
Waddle, waddle, wiggle, wobble, boing, boing, boing.
Don't worry, call the Car-X man.
When last we left the controversy concerning meter reading in Minneapolis, the city water department was defending its policy involving folks who aren't home when the meter reader comes to call. That was last night's story. Tonight, Chapter 2.
Well, last night we told you about the policy where the city doubles or even quadruples bills to anyone who is not home to let meter readers in when they call. Tonight, Colleen Needles updates the controversy with news of a possible change in policy.
Today, the Minneapolis Water Department was flooded with complaints. One of those with a grievance is Susan Gartland. She and her husband own a home in Minneapolis. Last fall, the water was turned off and they were overcharged by more than $100 because the meter hadn't been read in 6 months. The Gartlands had no choice but to pay the bill first and get the meter read later.
We would have liked to have had the $100 at Christmas time to use, but no, the city is keeping it in their bank and has slowly but surely, used it up to pay the water bill.
The Gartlands still have a credit with the Water Department almost 1 year after paying the inflated bill. Today, a public interest group accused the city of denying the Gartlands and others like them their constitutional rights.
Under the 14th Amendment, they cannot deprive anyone of property which constitutes money or water services without due process of law.
The city admits it deliberately overcharges customers and sometimes discontinues services to grab people's attention and persuade them to get their meter read. The city also admits it never asked its attorney if the practice was legal.
It's not a device to bilk people. If somebody, in fact, pays a large amount, it can be paid back to them or it can be left on their account as a credit.
But WCCO has learned that in many instances, the Water Department offers only credits and refuses to make cash refunds.
Water department officials say they'd rather help customers than penalize or aggravate them. So if the city attorney says the practice of deliberately overcharging customers is unconstitutional, the water department says it'll stop doing it. Calling Needles, WCCO Television News, Minneapolis.
Today, an Otter Tail County grand jury began investigating the possibility of indicting John Reardon on first-degree murder charges. The jurors adjourned late today. They'll continue hearing testimony tomorrow. Last week, Reardon told authorities that he had killed his 13-year-old daughter, Sarah, after she had resisted his sexual advances. Defense attorneys who were not present during that confession will begin reviewing videotapes of the admission. 2 prisoners accused of shooting 2 U.S. Marshals during an escape attempt last week were indicted by a federal grand jury in Madison, Wisconsin today. Michael Whitehead and John Luttrell each were charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and several escape-related charges. Both men will make court appearances next week. Today, Washington County authorities burned a bumper crop of marijuana. 1 ton of marijuana plants was confiscated during aerial searches last week. The plants were growing in the middle of several fields in Washington County. No arrests have been made. Authorities are still investigating that case. Debbie?
Many of the 1,500 striking meatpackers in Austin applied for unemployment compensation today. State job service officials must rule whether the workers are eligible for the benefit. Last fall, a federal arbitrator approved the company's wage cuts, and officials now say that could be a disadvantage for the striking employees.
In some cases, it's been ruled that anything greater than a 15% wage cut would be satisfactory for a termination. But in this case, because there is a union contract and an arbitrator's decision in effect, they will take precedent.
The Hormel strike is in its 5th day, and union workers will receive $65 a week in strike pay. AT&T today announced that it is eliminating 24,000 jobs from the company's information systems. The cuts will include 6,000 management positions and 18,000 union spots, including installation and maintenance personnel. AT&T says the cuts are being made to lower costs and increase profits.
The fundamental change that's taking place in all other industry and which is taking place generally throughout our industry. We expect to realize savings on the order of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Officials also say they'd like to accomplish some of the layoffs through attrition. It is still too early to tell how many Twin Cities employees might be affected.
In New York tonight, some gamblers are dreaming of big, big money.
I'm going to retire early. I'm just spending it. Don't you worry about that.
Lotto fever is alive and well in New York City. That story next on the 10 p.m. report.
Northern Hydraulics is having their fall roundup sale. Hundreds of products you need are now priced even lower. Supervise on Northern Hydraulics 12 and 16-ton lug splitters or parts to build your own. For trucks and vans, the best selection of running boards and bed liners. Trailer owners got the best prices at Northern Hydraulics for every part and complete unit. You'll find the largest selection of gas engines and tarps for every need and the lowest prices on portable Agtronic generators. Call or shop Northern Hydraulics for fall roundup specials right now through September 25th.
We're honoring the youth of America with Honors Clothing from Target. Now through Saturday, all girls' Honors clothes are on sale for 25% off. Honors clothes for boys are also on sale. Do your best in our best. Honors from Target.
Just take it easy. I'll help you right now. Here.
Don't miss the laughs with Carol Burnett, weeknights following the 10 p.m. report on Channel 4.
Tonight will be like no other night in New York City, where the largest lottery prize in North America is up for grabs. Residents stood in line for up to 2 hours to take a chance at Lady Luck, sustained only by the thought of the $41 million jackpot. The odds of winning are 6 million to 1. And not everyone is singing the praises of big money.
I don't like the state of New York being a bookmaker and then going out and telling people you can win. I mean, my friend Fat Thomas, the bookmaker, always said, you got 2 things you could do with your money. You can give it to the wife or you could give it to me. Either way, you'll never see it again.
But the state of New York will be really the big winner, taking a $45 million cut in that entire pool.
What would you do with $41 million?
Next.
We're dumbfounded.
I buy a weather satellite. Incidentally, Dave, I'm going to have to give you some lessons on how to speak my native language.
Are you from that part of the country?
I was born in Brooklyn.
I didn't know that.
Sure, I used to go watch the Dodgers play in Ebbets Field. Yeah. A lot of my relatives live in Jersey. Let's take a look at the low temperatures in Duluth. Duluth. 41 this morning, a record low in Duluth. 40 at Sandstone. Oh, it's chilly. But things are beginning to improve. The sun came up today, as predicted, and it got warmer. And slowly but surely, something resembling summer is returning. And temperatures, look at that, in the 90s out there in South Dakota. Still hug the 50s during the afternoon on the North Shore, but that's even going to warm up. 70s in southern Minnesota, finally. Of course, when you have a high temperature pattern like that, I wonder if there's a front. Yeah, there is the front. That is your basic warm front. And when you have a front, you've heard the script many times before. You know what I'm going to say next. That means there's a chance of severe weather. Where is the chance of severe weather? Well, it's from every place west. And until 11 o'clock this evening, a tornado watch in much of North Dakota. Watford City and Ross, North Dakota, have already had tornadoes. Touchdowns of hail also about yay big, tennis ball size. Last few hours, those cells have been developing, and you can see the basic drift has been first to the east and then to the south. One cluster of cells that formed in South Dakota and went down into Iowa, still alive and kicking even at this late hour. We've been watching the lightning down there. Since dinner time tonight, we've had 24,000 strokes of lightning in northern Missouri and northern Iowa. It's kind of wild down there. That's moving into Mason City right now. Our storms, if we get them tonight, will not arrive until the dawn hour. And after that, tomorrow it's going to be sort of off and on and up for grabs. There's the showers down in Mason City. Minnesota is clear and dry at the moment, but somewhere up there some thunderstorms will form, could come through in the dawn hours, and if they don't get us in the morning, by afternoon another wave of thunder showers will give about a 1 chance in 2 of rain around the area tomorrow. Right now, though, none of that kind of stuff. It's just clear. 63 degrees. Dew point 54. Humidity 72%. The winds are southeast of 13, and the barometer's rising at the moment, 30.10. And finally, we got into the 70s for the first day in 4, a little bit more like summer. 56 the low last night. The record high for the state is 98, proving summer still exists, at least in the record books. What about tomorrow? Well, what about the jet stream? The cool blob that gave us the chilliness is moving east to be replaced by a warm bulge to be quickly overrun by a wet wedge, so to speak. In other words, it's going to warm up, and then we're going to have to deal with showers off and on for several days. By tomorrow, a warm front and cold front combination is going to bring first possibly the morning showers, then again the afternoon showers, then some showers tomorrow night, then some showers into Friday, then another wave of showers probably on Saturday, and then continuing into Sunday. But it will be warmer. Temperatures will bounce up to the 70s and even the low 80s over portions of southern Minnesota, and there might even be a little more humidity in the air to give at least a semblance of summer, and you can tuck your sweater away for a day or two. Tonight, increasing clouds, about a 1 chance in 3 of a thunderstorm in the dawn hours, low about 60, east to southeast winds. Thursday, sun at times and clouds, possible afternoon thunderstorms redeveloping, the high around 78 to 80 degrees. Thursday night, mostly cloudy, some showers and thunderstorms at times, low 62. And then on Friday, variably cloudy, some more periods of showers, high around 63. We're in a rut because on Saturday we'll have another wave of showers and into Sunday. And then finally it'll probably clear up. And when I grew up, Dave, the temperature was always 33 degrees.
Yeah, but you learned to talk good since you become a weatherman.
Well, see, I went to the Mayo Clinic and I had my accent removed.
I got that. You led me into that dumb gag 2 years ago.
I know, it always works, too.
Didn't work. Hate it.
Congressional junkets are nothing new, but wait till you hear about this jet setter. That story is coming up on the 10 p.m. report.
Announcing the grand opening of 6 new Donaldson stores. And that means more power to you.
More power to you, more power to you. We got the power. Donaldson's, Donaldson's. Power, power, Donaldson's,
Donaldson's. Real fruit juice. And they're eating them like candy.
Shh. Can I have another one?
Ask your mother.
Mom, please?
Oh, I suppose so.
Oh,
New Juicicle bars made with real fruit juice in cherry, grape, and orange. Nothing artificial, and kids still love them.
Can I have another Juicicle bar?
Did you clean your room? Be right back. He went for it.
New Juicycle brand juice bars. What a great way to treat your kids.
Moral Majority Leader Reverend Jerry Falwell has just returned from South Africa, where he met with President P.W. Botha and other apartheid leaders. Yesterday, Falwell called Bishop Desmond Tutu, quote, a phony, and said that 80% of all blacks there do not agree with U.S. disinvestment. However, today he admitted that the figures he quoted were gathered in a South African government poll and that he had not actually seen the poll.
Well, all I can say is that, to me, it's far more sensible to cut out the cancer without killing the patient than to kill the patient, as my critics are suggesting.
Falwell spent today debating anti-apartheid leaders like Jesse Jackson.
A Filipino policeman was killed today when 55,000 protesters turned out around the Philippines to mark the anniversary of the opposition leader Benigno Aquino's murder. Aquino was shot to death by government security forces 2 years ago when he returned to the country after a 3-year exile. Today, his supporters marched to President Ferdinand Marcos's palace without incident. But in nearby Nagana, 13 people were injured and a policeman was killed. 100,000 Sikhs and Hindus gathered in Longowal, India today for the funeral of a Sikh leader who was assassinated yesterday. Harshan Singh Longowal was shot while praying at a shrine. He had just signed an agreement with the Indian government that many hoped would lead to peace between the Sikhs and Hindus. Tensions along that 10-mile funeral route were reported to be quite strained. Debbie?
Congressional junkets to foreign countries is a controversial subject on Capitol Hill right now because it's suspected that many congressmen use them as summer vacations. Tonight, congressional leaders are scrutinizing Arkansas's Congressman Bill Alexander's $56,000 jet trip to Brazil, supposedly to share ethanol gas technology. He had originally said that 4 other congressmen would be going along also, but he was alone on the 40-seat jet. On the way back, he stopped off with his teenage daughter for sightseeing in Honduras. The Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court warned a group of Minnesota lawmakers today that increasing caseloads are impairing the courts. Justice Warren Burger spoke before the Minnesota State Bar Association. Burger said that arbitration is better than conventional litigation in most cases and applauded Hennepin County for instituting an arbitration system.
Anytime you combine unrequited love with chainsaws, there's bound to be trouble. Take the case of 27-year-old Jay Hallez of Miami, whose advances were reportedly rebuffed by a young woman at a bar. In a frustrated rage, Hallez told the woman he was going to get even by cutting down all the trees. Instead, witnesses said, he took a chainsaw and proceeded to cut down several utility poles, leaving the 2,000 residents of Miami's Coconut Grove area in the dark and producing charges of aggravated assault and criminal mischief. Deb?
The Twins continue their nosedive against Milwaukee. Mark Rosen is up next with the sports.
Boys change every day, but a classic shirt doesn't. That's what makes it a classic. Marshalls. We've got lots of great colors. It's the original knit at a very original price. Marshalls. In a world where the best things in life often come with an equally impressive price tag, there's Marshalls. Brand names for less. Call for the store nearest you.
Your Chrysler Plymouth store sends 85 right out the door, out we close. Everything goes.
Get a great deal now on Chrysler New Yorker. Over $1,900 less than Buick Electra before your clearance deal. Bring your title and trade now.
Everything goes. Everything goes.
Last year at this time, the Minnesota Twins baseball team was playing a real good joke on us. Is it possible now in the events of the last several weeks or even a couple of months or so that they were obviously playing over their heads last year?
I don't know if they were playing over their heads last year. Maybe their expectations for this year were just a little bit too high. Have they ruined your summer? Tell me the truth.
No, not at all. I still love the game of baseball, and they've had some fine moments, I
entertaining.
think.
Every game is entertaining. Unfortunately,
Yes.
not enough in the W column. Today's another entertaining game. Milwaukee beat the Twins 3-2. The Twins did not win a game in County Stadium all year, and by now, losing in the ninth inning has become predictable. know, it's like we expect them to lose, and it's just a matter of how it's going to happen. Bert Blyleven deserved a better fate. He pitched 8 strong innings, striking out 6 to up his league-leading total to 157. Shortstop Alvaro Espinoza is hurting his chances of sticking around. For the second straight day, he made a costly error. Now, this play looks like an instant replay of the one the Twins blew in the 9th inning last night. At this point, Milwaukee went up 2-1 in the 5th inning. You know, it wasn't like Ray Burris was dazzling the Twins. Minnesota collected 11 hits off of him, including this Tim Tuffle home run. But once again, the Twins failed to hit in the clutch. Game tied at 2 in the 9th. Bases loaded, the outfield drawn in. Robin Yount hit a fly ball over Tom Bernansky's head. It really wouldn't have made any difference had he caught it. The runner would have easily tagged from third. Asked what kind of pitch he threw Yount, Ron Davis replied, a base hit. Milwaukee completes a 3-game sweep. The final score, 3-2. Elsewhere in the American League, Cleveland beat first-place Toronto 5-2. The Yankees are trailing right now in the 2nd inning, but if the Yankees win that game, they can pull within 3 games of the first-place Blue Jays. Oakland scored all its runs in the 9th to beat Detroit. Kansas City leading Chicago in the 8th inning. It was Texas 5, Boston 3. Baltimore and Seattle scoreless in the 2nd. The Mets took a game-and-a-half lead in the National League East in tonight's game with the Giants. They also took a 1-run lead into the 9th. But Bob Brenly hit a 2-run homer off Roger McDowell to give the Giants a 3-2 win. The loss was only the 3rd for the Mets in their last 16 games. Now, the second-place Cardinals have a chance to pick up ground by beating Houston, and right now they lead the Astros. That score is 7-4 in the 9th inning. Elsewhere, Chicago 9-5 over Atlanta. San Diego beat Montreal. Look at the Dodgers. They're running away in the West, 15-6 over Philadelphia. Cincinnati beat Pittsburgh 8-5. The East Tonka team succumbed to big pressure, big kids, and big bats today at the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. East Tonka lost to Morristown, Tennessee, 5-1 in the first round. Only the 2nd team in Minnesota to advance this far. East Tonka may have been a little nervous before game time, especially when they saw that number 14, Morristown's big kid right there. Morristown uncorked the big bats in the 4th inning. Catcher Rocky McElney knocked a Brad Kieran pitch over the wall in left. Later in the inning, Scott Stewart's sacrifice bunt scored another run, and Morristown was on its way to the semifinals. Pitching the big difference, Richie Conway did not allow a hit until the final inning when the Minnesotans got a pair of hits and scored their only run. Despite the loss, East Tonka is still assured of 2 more games. They'll play tomorrow in the losers bracket. There's another World Series going on right here in the Twin Cities. Baseball for the blind. The National Beat Baseball Tournament got underway in St. Louis Park tonight. There are over 200 beat baseball teams in the country, and the top 21 are in town for this 4-day tournament. And it's really quite an event. If you've never been to a beat baseball game, the softball is equipped with a loud beeping device. Now, once the ball is hit, the runner must touch the base, emitting the buzzing sound. If he reaches base before the fielder picks up the ball, it's a run. These guys are fearless, running full tilt into a 4-foot-high base made out of foam rubber. 3 Minneapolis teams are in the chase for the crown. The defending champs are from Albuquerque. The feature game of each day is played at the St. Louis Park High School football field. So if you get a chance the next couple evenings, stop by and give them your support. These athletes really appreciate it. Another first was achieved at Canterbury Downs today. The 14,000 handicappers on hand put together the track's first $1 million weekday handle. No one picked 6 correctly, and the one customer who hit 5 straight received $12,500. Over 38 grand will then be carried over for tomorrow's Pick 6 pool. Only 4 horses took part in the feature race, won by Betty Be Good.
Betty Be Good now moves up, and they're by the 8th pole. Brilliant Ascent on the inside, Betty Be Good on the outside to challenge final 16th. And it's Betty Be Good in front.
Mary Decker Slaney has become the world's fastest woman miler. She sliced almost 3/4 of a second off the old record, running it in 4 minutes, 16.71 seconds today in Switzerland. Lieutenant Governor Marlene Johnson kicked off St. Paul's first premier gymnastics event today at the state capitol. U.S. national team gymnast Lisa Whitwer of St. Paul will be performing in front of her hometown fans in the U.S. World Championships September 26th through the 28th at the St. Paul Civic Center. In the men's division, Olympic gold medalist Tim Daggett will head a field of 24 of the country's best. The winners will go on to the World Championships in Montreal the first week of November. So if you enjoy watching gymnastics, keep in mind the dates of September 26th through the 28th at the St. Paul Civic Center. You will see the country's best out there.
I congratulate you. That was how do we say, one of the more eclectic newscasts. You had
you got it all in there.
7 sports, right. Thank you, Mark. You wonder how Bergie Hannaford's Diner could flourish for 15 years in Hines, Oregon, with such a slogan as, the worst food in Oregon, and such signs in the window as, come in and sit with the flies, and food is terrible, the service is worse. Well, I'll tell you how he can flourish. Bergie sells ham and eggs for $1.40, a 16-ounce steak for $6.50, and coffee for a nickel. I guess we'd all sit with the flies for that. But
might even eat with a few roaches. I think we can put up with Walt Lyon's weather forecast for tomorrow and the possibility of showers, but generally it'll be sunny and a high of 78 degrees. We bid you a good night.
As a matter of fact, this is my real voice.
Television Classics salutes our Miss Brooks with Eve Arden and Richard Crenna on the Next Hour magazine. Plus, Jane Fonda looks forward to a midlife crisis.
That I